Chapter 6. I was the first one of the gang to get to the spring, and Circus was the last. He'd had a hard time persuading his parents that it was important not to miss a meeting. Circus's folks, his dad especially, never did understand boys very well, although his dad must have been a boy once himself. But sometimes grown-ups are funny that way. They forget that inside a boy there is something that just makes him want to keep his promise to the gang. And I tell you, it's pretty hard to obey your parents when they don't understand. We had to, though. Big Jim said he'd read it in the Bible as plain as day. Children, obey your parents. Little Jim agreed it was true. He had seen it in the Bible with his own eyes. Besides, Big Jim said, if you ever want to become a Boy Scout, one of the qualifications is obedience. Well, pretty soon we were all there, and Big Jim had come with a mysterious package under his arm. Circus climbed a small elm sapling almost as soon as he got there, and was swaying in the top, back and forth, looking every bit like a monkey in the zoo. Dragonfly and Poetry and Little Jim and I started tumbling around in the grass like kittens, having a good time. All six of us were as pleased to see each other as if we hadn't been together in years. The spring, you know, comes bubbling up out of a hole from a rock at the bottom of the steep hill. Only about 20 feet of the creek. Dad had the water tested to see if it was all right to drink, and it was. Just at that minute, a big green striped poke came flying up the creek with its long neck sticking out in front of him like a long handle on my green coaster wagon. His wings were flapping and driving him through the air awful fast. He was the most iconic looking bird you ever saw. I had just gotten my binoculars focused on him and was following him up the creek with my eyes when Poetry was reminded of a verse from Himawah. Away he went in his squawky voice. It was about as squawky as a big quote herons, which going quacking up the creek at night, sounding like a young rooster learning to crow. Then the little Howana learned of every bird its language, learned their names and all their secrets, how they built their nests in summer, how they hide themselves in winter, talked with them when he met them, called them Howana chickens. Poetry had finished the first verse and was starting the second when something came swinging down from above and landed right on the top of him. Circus had caught hold of the top of the elm sapling where he was sitting and swung himself out. The top of the tree had bent right over to the ground and brought him down with it. When he let go, the tree top flew right back up again. In another minute, we were all trying it, each one climbing a tree and swinging from one to the other or down to the ground, whichever we wanted to do. You can do that with elm trees, you know. But all this was just wasting time, so pretty soon Poetry looked at me and I looked at him. We decided to ask Big Jim to call a meeting to order so Poetry could show us what he'd found yesterday. First, though, Big Jim opened his package, and there was a whole packet of paper drinking cups. We knew right away what they were for. We studied in school about how everyone ought to have individual drinking cups for health reasons. Big Jim picked up the old rusty cup that was sitting there on the rock, and which everybody in the country had used for many years. We all stood solemn-like, wondering what he was going to do. First he held it up for us to see, and then he said dramatically, "You can never tell when someone is going to drink out of it. Someone who has a terrible disease, maybe. And then the next person who uses the cup may become infected." Then Big Jim set the cup down on a rock. And with another rock he pounded and hammered it until he'd smashed it all flat. Then he tossed it into the weeds, and pretty soon we had all signed up that said, Please use paper drinking cups. Oh, and pretty soon we had a sign up that said, "Please use paper drinking cups." When we were finished, the rest of the cups were fastened on a tree by the spring in a tin container, just like you see sometimes in public places. All of a sudden, Poetry was gone, and then a minute later he came bobbing down the hill like an old man with the long beard and long white hair and dark glasses on. Dragonfly pinched me on the arm so hard I couldn't help but say, "Ouch!" Then I shut up like a clam. "Howdy, boys," Poetry said in that quavering old man voice. "Do you reckon maybe a feller I can get a drink of water at the spring here?" Little Jim looked as white as a sheet. Circus's monkey face was as sober as a funeral. I thought even Big Jim looked a little bit worried. For he was a boy, even if he was older, even if he was our leader. He wasn't so much bigger than Poetry at that. Dragonfly and I were holding hands over our mouths to keep from laughing. "Where's my old rusty tin cup?" Poetry's voice quivered, and it didn't sound any more like poetry than anything. But then Circus saw his bare feet and noticed how big and round he was. 2 seconds later, Poetry was standing bareheaded and looked surprised and disgusted and Circus was already trying the disguise on himself to see how he would look. Well, Big Jim called a meeting, and Poetry, Dragonfly, and I told the others everything we knew, even to the radio announcement. Big Jim took it all pretty calmly, but I could see he was as much excited on the inside as the rest of us. "Maybe I'd better run home and ask Mother if I can go," Little Jim said. "Not much you don't," Circus said. "It's going to be a secret. Now if you're afraid—" "I'm not afraid," Little Jim shouted bravely. Of course he was afraid, and so were all of us. But a boy likes to be scared. A little bit. It feels good. So pretty soon we were there, right down along the swamp, walking cautiously toward the old hollow sycamore tree.